The Cecil Soil Conservation District proudly presents William Price IV of Price Valley Farm as our 2016 Cooperator of the Year. Price Valley Farm encompasses 464 acres of gently rolling countryside in Warwick, Maryland. The farm is bordered to the north by Middle Neck Road and to the south by Little Bohemia Creek, a tributary of the Bohemia River. Over 150 acres of fields support grain crops, nearly 80 acres are forested, and a little over 200 acres are enrolled in federal programs as conservation areas. Almost a third of the farm is located in the Chesapeake Bay Critical Area, so conservation measures here are especially beneficial to the health of the bay. The farm has been operated by the Price family for 4 generations. Over the years, they have remained committed to the stewardship of their natural resources. William Price IV's grandfather originally purchased Price Valley Farm and several adjoining farms along Middle Neck Road in the early 1900s. William Price III inherited 3 of these farms. William Price IV, known as Bill, and his siblings grew up on one of the farms just up the road from Price Valley Farm. The children took an active part in the farming operations, and Bill knew that he would continue to farm when he grew up. As a young man, he met Nellie, the daughter of a nearby farming family, and they were married in September of 1950. Just a month or so after he and Nellie were married, Bill was drafted into the Army and sent to basic training in Virginia. After basic training, he traveled to Korea, where he spent 2 years serving as a cook in the Army. While there, he carried a photograph of his new wife everywhere and even had a local artist draw her portrait. Upon his return from Korea, he and Nellie began farming at Price Valley Farm. They moved into the old farmhouse, which dates back to at least 1830 and is listed in the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties. Bill and Nellie maintained the dairy operation on the farm, but in 1965 they sold the dairy cows and the milking equipment and shifted to grain farming. Soon after this, Bill took a job with Chrysler in Newark, a position he would keep until his retirement nearly 3 decades later. He never missed a day of work in all those years. Returning home on some winter nights, he would be snowed out and have to leave his car and walk the last 2 miles to the farm, all after a long day of work. Bill and Nellie raised their 3 children, Diane, Patty, and William V, called Billy Boy by the family, along with 2 of Nellie's siblings. The children were actively involved in farming operations, helping take in the hay, drive the tractors, maintain their father's large garden, and take care of the animals, among other chores. Bill was busy from dawn to dark, and one of his children recalls that they saw little of him during the week. However, there were always the weekends, and they made time for fun, including annual fishing trips to Maine with family friends, hunting, and swimming down at the creek. Once, Bill took one of his daughters rabbit hunting, told her they had to be very quiet, and then promptly fell asleep, snoring loudly. He needed all the sleep he could get in those busy days. The children set down strong roots on the family farm, and today, Bill and Nellie's 3 children, 11 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren have almost all settled nearby. In 1994, Nellie passed away, but her warm heart and generous spirit are still remembered. In addition to working as a driver for Clean Harbors, Billy Boy helps his father on the farm. Diane, who is retired from W.L. Gore, lives on the farm, and Patty and her husband have a painting business not far away. Bill's sister Louisa, brother Larry, and 2 nephews own adjoining farms, keeping their father's lands in the family. Many of Bill's family members, especially one nephew, Bill Pleasanton, help out at Price Valley Farm. After Bill retired from Chrysler, he planted an orchard, partly, he says, to have something to do. He has always cultivated a large garden, and in 1985 grew a record-breaking cantaloupe, which weighed 41 pounds. In his orchard and gardens, Bill grows peaches, pears, berries, apples, asparagus, and annual vegetables. Bill's relationship with the Soil Conservation District began when he signed a conservation plan in 1972. Early conservation practices included conservation tillage and cover crops. Conservation tillage is a practice which minimizes disturbance of the soil, and cover crops are grasses, small grains, or legumes planted after the summer crop has been harvested in order to decrease erosion and loss of nutrients. One of the earliest structural practices was a pond, built in 1973, followed by several grassed waterways to address erosion concerns along natural drainage ways in the fields. A second pond was installed in 1988, funded by the MAX program under the Maryland Department of Agriculture. In 2005, Bill was among the first group of farmers in the country to enroll in the Conservation Stewardship Program, which required farmers to implement innovative conservation practices. In 2008, grading and a critical area planting were completed in a crop field to address an existing erosion problem. The original pond had outlived its lifespan and had begun to leak, and a beaver had started making a home in the pond, so in 2009, they replaced the riser and barrel and installed a device to control beavers. Bill follows a nutrient management plan to ensure proper application of fertilizer to his crop fields. His conservation crop rotation includes corn, soybeans, and small grains. Over the years, he has enrolled many acres in the Conservation Reserve Program and Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program to create riparian buffers, wildlife habitat, filter strips, and conservation cover areas. Bill noted that these programs have been very beneficial for the farm, providing conservation of natural resources and also providing income on land temporarily taken out of crop production, which was especially helpful when his son was injured in a trucking accident and Bill himself was still working at Chrysler. More recently, Bill planted native warm season grasses and wildflowers on a portion of his cropland to create habitat for rare and declining grassland nesting bird species. In the coastal plain region, this habitat is targeted toward two at-risk species, grasshopper sparrows and dick cecils. A recent survey of bird species performed at the farm found 42 different species and nearly 200 individual birds in less than 3 hours, including 24 of the targeted grasshopper sparrows and 5 dick cecils, which are an extremely rare find in Cecil County. Bill was the first farmer in Cecil County to enroll land in this conservation program. Currently, he, his sister, and his brother have the only enrolled acreage on the entire eastern shore dedicated to rare and declining grassland nesting bird habitat under the CREP program. Together, they have created over 100 acres of valuable bird habitat on Middle Neck Road. Bill is committed to the preservation and stewardship of the land. In 1999, he placed the farm in a conservation easement under the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation to keep the land in agricultural use for future generations. Family and friends have always been welcome at the farm, and some farm workers came and stayed for years. For many people, the farm is a place of peace and fond memories. The Cecil Soil Conservation District proudly recognizes William Price IV and Price Valley Farm for their wise use and conservation of natural resources.